Great. Well, Chip, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry that you couldn't be with us in person, but be very happy to have you take this time to speak with us today. So maybe you could tell us a bit about why you couldn't be with us in person. What are you up to?
Yes. Well, we have an annual event called the Airbnb Open. And it's in Paris this year. We have people coming from all over the world to basically share best practices with each other. Paris is our biggest city in the world for Airbnb listings. We have 62,000 homes in Paris alone. It's an annual event that gives our hosts the opportunity to recognize they're part of a bigger community.
Really, since the beginning of Airbnb, there's been this kind of focus on the idea of the host, right, as opposed to just the owner, right, who's listing their property. Why do you use that term, host? What does that mean?
Well, it predates me. I've been here at Airbnb for over 2.5 years now, but it's interesting. In my history as a boutique hotelier, which is 29 years old, and I still own 15 hotels, we called our front desk clerks at a hotel the host. So for almost 3 decades, that's the language I've used. When I joined Airbnb, that was the language they were using. And it's really premised on the idea that Airbnb is a form of the democratization of hospitality.
Well, what kind of role does the host play, though, in the guest experience? To what extent are Airbnb guests engaging with the host and spending time with the host?
So our hosts, 60% of the time when an Airbnb guest is staying in an Airbnb listing, it's a whole home. But 40% of the time, it's a shared situation. You've got a relationship that's being built in person. So in that process of getting to know each other, hospitality can be present. Guests love Airbnb for a lot of reasons. One of them is more space, less money. But another one that's actually really competes head on head with that is they want to live like a local.
Important, especially as Airbnb grows, right, and becomes more mainstream. We've been seeing it in our work. I presume you're seeing this, a real shift in the mix of travelers who are staying on Airbnb.
Yeah.
How important is these amazing brand messages and attributes like around the sharing economy and traveling like a local, and yet at the same time it also really just comes down to, I need a place to stay, I want it to be within this budget, so it's really about price and availability. What's that?
Well, we have gone more mainstream, no doubt about it. We see it based upon the demographics. The demographics of both our hosts and guests are growing older because our core was historically millennials in tech. And it's sort of grown, with 50, 60 million guests now.
You mentioned earlier the talked about the valuation of Airbnb. And it's pretty amazing, actually. The private market valuation makes Airbnb larger than several large hotel companies, Expedia, TripAdvisor, others. Why? With that, well, 2 questions.
Why?
Why does a private market? What do they see? How big can this be?
Well, I think there's a few things, and again, you have to speak to all the investors, but having been here for 2.5 years and seen the value go up 10 times or so, I have some sense of what it is. I think the total addressable market we're talking about with home sharing in the world is enormous. And that's why people say, why don't you get into OTAs? Why not just do hotels? It's like, listen, if we stick to our knitting and do it well, it's an enormous market of the fact that there's tens of millions of idle beds, bedrooms,
so you have 1.7
million listings.
So it could be
a lot larger. I won't say the number, but I will say it can be a lot larger. So I think that's one piece. The second piece is our organic search numbers in terms of people who just come to our website, not because of some kind of OMG spend, not kind of some kind of performance marketing spend, but people are coming on their own, is substantially higher, like X times, 2, 3, 4 X times some of our competitors. So that means the cost to get a customer, keep a customer, and the loyalty factor of those customers is really high, which is surprising to people who don't understand Airbnb or have never experienced Airbnb, or they've experienced and maybe had a bad experience.
So where do you draw the line? If I'm a hotelier, can I list on Airbnb? If
Well,
I'm not-
two thoughts there. One is one area that I think we're really well suited for is the vacation rental by owner. I mean, where literally the owner is leasing it out, renting it out themselves. That market has flocked to us, and I think will continue to. And that has a little more idiosyncrasies in terms of the nature of the product, and we're fine with that. So we're not trying to institutionalize that experience. In terms of hotels being on the platform, right now we don't have a fence or a billboard, and this is my own personal language. The fence would be saying, if you're Planet Hollywood Las Vegas, which had a listing on our site not long ago, I don't know if they still do, then we should probably say, that's not home sharing, that's probably not a fit for Airbnb. At the same time, if you're a 4-unit inn in Vermont, and you have the only way you market your property right now is through your own website, wow. I mean, literally tomorrow I'm doing a webinar for hundreds of innkeepers and bed and breakfast owners across the US because they're saying, wow, Airbnb could be not our competitor, they could be our competitor, but they could also be a distribution platform and a very affordable one. And so I do think that there are small hospitality businesses that are well suited for us, and that over time we should say the billboard, that's the business we want, but we don't want to become an OTA. So an OTA basically would be someone who would say, yeah, we want anything, any kind of lodging product. I think we need to stay close to our core, which is to be a home sharing site that's locally focused with, in many cases, an owner living on site, which is the truth in many innkeeping or bed and breakfast situations.
Speaking of OTAs, do you give much thought to some of the big players, and in particular Booking.com, but also Expedia, as they clearly taking an interest in this space and all of the success that Airbnb's had?
Yeah, I mean, obviously our valuation and how people see us and our growth has meant that there's a lot of people trying to get into our business. We have a tough business though, let's be honest. We're in 34,000 cities. In many cases, the law within the city is not clear about short-term rentals, about home sharing. So we are blazing a trail. And as we blaze it and make it a little bit more normalized, then yes, other people are getting into it. But the thing that's different is you're not going to see probably Expedia or Booking doing a host convention with 6,000 people opening up their homes from 100 countries coming to Paris and having sort of this opportunity for people to have a bit of a love-in as an experience of opening their homes and hearts to others. And that's just not, their market is much more transactional. And for that, it's great. I think Booking is particularly remarkable at the transactional side. We like to think of ourselves more as a transformational company as opposed to a transactional company. And that means the level of depth with our host community is much greater.
Could there ever be a day when I could book an Airbnb on Expedia or Booking.com?
I doubt it. Yeah, I think people sort of see us as the revolutionary in home sharing, but really a couple things I think we've been revolutionary. Number one is it's a seamless, beautifully designed experience. Now it's not for everyone because frankly the friction around booking someone's home and having some conversation back and forth is not for everybody, although over time more and more of our listings are instant book. There's something going right. Now, being a private company affords us all kinds of freedom that a public company doesn't have. And so I think actually, lately that's been part of the issue too. I think people like the fact that we're a private company and one that has a very clear intent of where we're going. And we're going to expand beyond accommodations over time and just be a broader travel company. Just imagine that you're a guest on Airbnb, and one of the challenges as we get bigger is the paradox of choice. So you're going to Paris and there are 62,000 listings and you've stayed in 6 other places with Airbnb. So because you stayed in 6 other places, we know your preferences in terms of what kind of place you like, what kind of decor you like. We have captured all of our reviews on our site. We don't use TripAdvisor for that. And shockingly, 70 to 75% of our hosts and guests review each other, which if in the hotel business, as a hotel, 20% would be great.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. I want to read you a quote. You said something quite interesting at a conference recently, I think a hotel industry conference. You said, you have to be willing to break your own model. We are right now working on some ideas that would literally put us out of business.
Yeah. Well, that was the context. So the context of how the question was asked really spoke to that. You know, who's going to disrupt us?
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is that I think we should disrupt ourselves. So I think that our biggest competitor 4 years from now may be a company that doesn't exist today. But there are a lot of experiences. The more that the experience can actually be distilled down to something that's personalized, customized, and digital, and the process of educating yourself about what's happening in that city that's customized to you, it takes a lot of time. I mean, Amazon, Netflix, Spotify have all taught us that the more you use the product, the more they understand you, the more they can deliver.
The hotel industry, I think, has become kind of increasingly, concerned as Airbnb grows. I'm going to ask you to put your hotelier hat kind of back on. So I imagine you're running a hotel today or a hotel group. Would you be concerned, and what would you do?
The psychographic that is clearly an Airbnb enthusiast is somebody who sees it as a place they can call home. And you could say that about a hotel, but part of the reason I think that the home fun feeling is important is because our average length of stay is twice as long as a hotel. Our average length of stay for business travelers is 3 times the length of the average business traveler stay. So let's just be clear that one of the most basic functions that somebody wants is a place where they can actually sort of stretch out and feel like they are living there for a while. So extended stay customers of all types, of all ages, are a core use case. Number one is the hotel industry can learn something from us, help people live like a local, help to improve the quality of your digital experience, customize the experience as much as you can, create a la carte services. These are the kinds of things I think that we have helped to teach. So it's a community. Let's just be really clear. This is a community. It's not just a transaction.
Let me just bring you back to regulation really quickly. It's a contentious topic, but I think in fact just recently your CEO spoke about actually wanting to have regulation. Right? Regulation is recognition, I think is a phrase I heard him use. I mean, you want to pay taxes.
A real fundamental evolution that we've had as a company is a comfort level of just saying, listen, occupancy taxes, I mean, we pay our corporate taxes if we made money, and our hosts get a 1099 in the US, and outside the US it depends on what the laws are. When you come to the question of, let's say, disability access, well, disability access for the average host, the average active host on our site only rents their place out 6 days a month. There are some people who are above average, so if you actually took it down to like inactive hosts, and it's probably 2 or 3 nights a month. So for someone who's actually doing this very casually, and maybe they're doing it on a weekend when they're going to see their girlfriend, and they live in San Francisco and they're going to go down to LA, do you actually ask them to ADA their bathroom? I don't think so. I just think that most people I know, even those who are our critics, say, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So I think the rules around that are a function of what the land use laws and the health and safety laws within a particular municipality are. And it may be for full-time hosts or people who are property managers, there would be a different set of rules than there would be for the person who's doing it quite casually.
Well, Chip, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here. action.